Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please recognize Representative Ford for a special presentation of House Resolution 1008.
Gentleman from Midwest City, Representative Ford, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would request that House Resolution 1008 be adopted by unanimous consent.
The clerk will read.
HR1008 by forward of the House, a resolution congratulating Tinker Air Force Base.
Gentleman from Midwest City, we request unanimous consent that the resolution be adopted without objection. That'll be the order. Representative Ford, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, and guests, the biography before you on your desk is too lengthy to read, and I think you would rather hear from the General than me. So it is my honor to introduce to you the highest ranking military member in the state of Oklahoma, a true American hero, and my friend, Lieutenant General Lee K. Levy II.
Thank you. Thank you.
General Levy, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Airmen. An unusual form of greeting in this House, I'm certain. But every one of you here are key components to the air power fabric that underpins the security of our nation. And so by extension, every one of you are airmen. And so for the remainder of my remarks, that's exactly how I will address you as airmen. Speaker McCall, thank you for allowing me to be here. Representative Ford, thank you for the honor of allowing me a few moments at the podium. To all of the representatives, thank you to you for your service to the state of Oklahoma. It occurs to me that in modern times, we do not always value the service of our public representatives, and in my view, that is a mistake. So thank you for your dedication to the people of Oklahoma and the great state. So there are a few points I'd like to share with you this morning, and I think they're certainly worthy of illuminating in the few moments that I have with you. First, thank you to the Oklahoma State government and to the local communities for the tremendous support that we enjoy at Tinker Air Force Base. Thank you very much for your support on rectifying the Real ID Act. As the senior ranking active duty uniformed member in the state of Oklahoma, I can speak on behalf of Fort Sill, McAllister Army and Ammunition Plant, obviously Tinker Air Force Base, Altus, and Vance, and tell you that the absence of that creates significant challenges for us in executing our national duties. So I thank you for your support in rectifying that. I also thank you for your ongoing support with respect to the Oklahoma aerospace-related tax credits. In a moment, I'll talk about a fifth-generation workforce to support a fifth-generation Air Force. And as we move from an Iron Age Air Force to an Information Age Air Force, engineers and STEM graduates are the critical underpinning of what we do at Tinker Air Force Base. In fact, STEM isn't just vital to Oklahoma or even to our national defense. I would tell you that it's vital to our national competitiveness. There's a symbiotic relationship between the educational system of Oklahoma, its STEM output, and what we can accomplish at Tinker Air Force Base. You might not know that I could hire every four-year engineering graduate from Oklahoma engineering universities every year and still have empty chairs at Tinker Air Force Base. Maybe I can hire them. If they have science, technology, and engineering degrees, I'm ready for them. But our educational system in the state is the ecosystem that develops and delivers those kinds of young men and women, most of which are civilians, I would tell you, to do the work that we need them to do. What policies, incentives that are passed in this body directly shape the output of the STEM system of Oklahoma. And it takes 21 years to grow an engineer. They start about here, and they finish about 21 years later with an engineering degree from a four-year university. It requires consistent, sustained focus on a critical long-range target. I like to refer to it as strategic patience. So there are approximately 30,000 people that work at Tinker Air Force Base. About 25,000 of them are our civilian airmen. We hire predominantly from inside the state. We want the best that Oklahoma has to produce. We want graduates from OSU and OU and the other engineering schools. Now, I won't begin to talk about the merits of OU or OSU, as I have a Louisiana State University degree. I'll let you argue that out amongst yourselves when I'm not in the room. But we offer challenges and complexities for a 21st century Air Force that we need scientists and engineers to help us with. And we would prefer to hire those young men and women from inside of the state of Oklahoma. So I thank you for what you've done, but I would solicit your continued support in creating that ecosystem over the long term that delivers those young men and women to Tinker Air Force Base to do exciting things. I'll take your son or daughter right out of college and I'll offer him or her opportunities they simply won't be able to have in commercial industry. Working on nuclear command and control and communications platforms. Working on the next generation tanker. Working on the F-35 fighter software. Incredible jobs with incredible meaning, not just for the state of Oklahoma, but for the defense of our nation. You might not know that since 1953, no U.S. serviceman has been attacked from the air by an enemy combatant since the Korean War. That air dominance, that air supremacy is not a national birthright. Men and women, it is an obligation that we must claw, scratch, and fight to maintain every year, particularly as our enemies draw closer. Having that kind of technologically savvy talent in our Air Force as civil servants is essential to defense of the nation in the future, and making sure that that date stays in 1953 and that that clock is never ever reset. So let's talk about Tinker Air Force Base for a moment. This year we celebrate its 75th anniversary. It's the 75th anniversary of Midwest City as well. Oklahoma City and the surrounds have been incredible partners to Tinker Air Force Base. And when I think back into 1942-ish, when the city fathers had that vision to establish what was known as Midwest Air Depot and the Douglas Aircraft Factory, none of us would have expected that it would have evolved into the Tinker Air Force Base that we know today. But here it is, a cornerstone of the defense of our nation. Not only do we repair, sustain, and support weapon systems such as the B-1, the B-2, the B-52, the E-3, the KC-135, but it's also home to the 552nd Air Control Wing, the AWACS. It's also home to a key cornerstone of our nuclear command and control, Navy Strategic Communication Wing 1, the TACAMO folks. We like to call them our red dirt sailors. I often tell the Navy, my Navy brothers and sisters, I'm not your dad, I'm just your stepdad. We home them, we love them, we take care of them, we enable their mission because their mission is our mission, strategic nuclear deterrence that has underpinned the freedom of our country since the end of World War II. We just celebrated the 60th anniversary of the KC-135 last year. Any of you drive a 60-year-old car to work? Any of you rely on that every day, but yet that's what we rely on in our nation to project global reach, global vigilance, and global power. All of that being sustained right at Tinker Air Force Base. So when I tell you I have an average fleet age of 27 years in my United States Air Force, you understand why just yesterday afternoon I was testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee articulating the need for our United States Air Force to continue to modernize across all of its portfolio. I can take care of 60-year-old airplanes at Tinker Air Force Base. I can take care of 54-year-old airplanes at Tinker Air Force Base because every B-52 there was built before I was born. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, old airplanes are old airplanes. We simply must modernize, and that helps keep us capable, credible, and ready. Tinker has an amazing team. I've talked about what I need for the future. I've talked about the STEM requirements. Maybe what I should talk about for a moment, though, is not just at the national level, maybe at the state level. Tinker Air Force Base employs nearly 30,000 folks, as I mentioned. Only about 6,000 or so are uniform-wearing men and women like me. The rest are our civilian airmen. But they insert $3.7 billion directly into the state economy. It's a huge economic engine, not just for large corporations, but for small businesses as well. So it's strategically important not only to the national defense, but to the local economy and to the well-being of Oklahoma. Aerospace, I believe, is the largest industry behind the oil and gas industry. And it's certainly my goal to keep that growing and maybe at some point overtake the oil and gas industry as the most vital industrial sector in the state of Oklahoma. For I believe that by rising that economic level, I can also improve the quality of life of Oklahomans, the quality of education in Oklahoma, and make Oklahoma an even better place to live, work, and play. I look forward to seeing all of you on the 21st and 22nd of May out at Tinker Air Force Base, where we will have our air show commemorating the 75th anniversary. And my suspicion is that some of you in this chamber have seen the Blue Angels fly. I'm sorry. But make a mark on your calendar now for the 21st and 22nd of May, because your United States Air Force Thunderbirds will be performing feats of incredible airmanship that only U.S. Air Force airmen can perform in the skies above Oklahoma. So on the 21st and 22nd, I invite you to come celebrate our 75th anniversary at Tinker while the Thunderbird fly. And I'd simply close by saying thank you again for all of your support to all of our airmen and our sailors and their families. While many of us are deployed either in the missile fields or somewhere where it's hot and sandy, one thing we always count on in Oklahoma is the grace, kindness, and love of the citizens of Oklahoma to take care of our airmen and their families, particularly when our members are downrange. So again, Representative Ford, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. To all the members in the chamber, thank you for a chance to spend a few minutes with you. And airmen, I would simply like to close by saying, aim high. Thank you.